We're live. All right, I've got 6 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beaumont City Council regular council meeting for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 here in City Council chambers. I'll call the meeting to order, and we begin as we usually do with our land acknowledgement, which is we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that the President continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. As we gather here in the traditional territory of Treaty 6, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibility to protect and honor all of life. We have one proclamation this evening, National Public Works Week, May 21st to 27th, 2023. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Beaumont. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public building and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for all citizens, civic leaders, and children in Beaumont to Alberta to gain knowledge of and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their community. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim May 21st to 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week, the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 9th of May, 2023. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, is there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor, there are no changes.
Thank you. Member of Council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as presented. Councilman Cook, Kat, you have the floor.
So moved, your mayor.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Council, would you please vote on the motion before you? One more yet. The buttons are a little sticky today, it seems. Mine was sticking a while ago. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. On the consent agenda this evening, next on the agenda is consent agenda. It's on screen in front of us. Member of Council willing to move the consent agenda as presented. No takers? Councilor Tessier.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the consent agenda as presented, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is 5-1, right? And 7-1. Thank you. Okay. Open forum this evening. Madam Clerk, any presenters or open forum? Oh, sorry. My apologies. We will vote on the consent agenda. Council, please vote accordingly. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk, anybody here for open forum this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor, we have no registered presenters.
Thank you very much. We then move into item 6.1, Community Grant Funding Program Awards. Please join me at the mic there. Actually, I'll give you the right mic. Hang on a second. Okay, your mic is on. Please state your names for the record, please, and begin your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Manter, Team Lead Arts and Events.
And my name is Amy Ma. I'm the chairperson of the Community Grants Committee this year.
Thank you.
Yes, Amy is here to present the recommendations for the April intake of the Community Grant Funding Program.
So this year we received 9 applications and we have approved funding for 7 of them. I believe you guys have these in your minutes, but the first one we have approved is for $3,000 for the Hindu Society of Beaumont. They are a new society to town, but they seem to be a very motivated group and they are putting on a Mother's Day event. So if anyone doesn't have plans this weekend, they will be having that here in town.
Sorry, you put the mic a little closer to you so you can hear you a little more clearly. Thank you.
All right, sorry about that.
It's okay.
And then the second one we have approved is $4,000 for the Beaumont Soccer Association. They are planning to use this money to buy a new barbecue and trailer. And they're also planning to lend this barbecue and trailer system out to other groups within Beaumont that will require it. The third grant that we have approved funding for is for the Empowering Women Entrepreneurs Association for their night market. Their goal is to bring a lot of people to Beaumont, and this grant will help them keep the admissions to the event free and keep them from having to raise their fees for the vendors this year. The fourth grant that we have decided to give funding to is for Beaumont's Ringette Association for their annual brass ring tournament. It brings a lot of people to Beaumont. It supports some great youth initiatives. Our fifth grant that we're applying or funding is for the Black Impact Alliance Foundation of Beaumont. They are having an event that will be at the beginning of September during Cultural Days, where they want to support the Black community within Beaumont and help them get their roots settled. They plan to do this by having 10 different booths set up from different African countries or groups for people to learn about them, and having a seed trading group, which is pretty new, but they're going to be having seeds from Africa and seeds from here, and people can learn about the cultures and what plants have grown everywhere, because plants and food are the basis of everything. The sixth grant that we have chosen to fund this year is for Ruminary Live Arts for the Beaumont International Arts Festival. That also brings a lot of people to Beaumont and will help to showcase some local talent to the greater community. And then the last group that we have decided to fund this year is the Beaumont and District Heritage Society to get their handicap accessible walkways up to the door. It's one of the last projects that they need before they'll be able to fling those doors open to the public. And that's all we're funding. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Yes, thanks very much. We will go through, I think it's best to go through probably line by line, any questions council may have on each particular organization and the request of the funding recommendation provided by the committee. So first of all, any questions on the first one, Hindu Society of Beaumont? Any questions from council? Yeah, Councilman Goswayne on this particular one.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot, but do you have any information about the event? Not wanting to out myself, but looking for some plans on Sunday. So
They are having an event. I think it's at the community center. Don't quote me on that. You'll want to check it. They're going to have dancers, they're going to have food and music, and they're going to be honoring all mothers.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions further on the first one. Second is Beaumont Soccer Association. Request was 8, and the committee recommends 4. Discussion from anyone, or sorry, any questions from council? Seeing none. The third one, Empowering Women's Night Market. Ask was 10, grant was 5. Questions from council on that particular one? Seeing none, got that. Okay. Beaumont Rec Association, sorry, Ringette Association. Request and at 35. Committee we're going at 1,000. Seeing none. Next one, Black Impact Alliance Foundation of Beaumont. Questions on that one? Councilor Barnard, I have a question as well, but please, Councilor Barnard, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is new, and I'm just wondering 2 questions. One is, when is this happening? And the second question is, many of the groups received half. A couple got exactly what they asked for. This is pretty significant. It's the maximum grant. It's a first time. Is there something in terms of I'm not thinking eligibility, but in terms of the way the committee is approving it, that has something to do with it being its first time that they would get the maximum amount? It just seemed odd to me that would happen. If you could explain that, that would be great. And the date, please, because I don't.
Just leave your mic on if you could. Just leave it on. Thanks.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. It is now.
Okay. The first one, I believe it's on September 3rd on Cultural Days weekend.
September 3rd?
Yes. And the reason that this particular group received full funding when most did not was our committee actually thought long and hard about this. And we decided that this group in particular could really benefit from the funding. They're looking into doing a lot of research and a new group that could really use the support. They have a lot of backing. They've done a lot of events. This similar leader has done some events in Edmonton that have worked out pretty well. And we just wanted to give them some money to run with and see what they could do.
Okay, later on, I'd like to talk about the process more so than the group if
No
you
problem.
have time. for that.
Okay, yeah, we'll go through questions
Thank
right
you.
now. I have a question if you don't mind. So I was curious about this one. I haven't heard of this group before. So I Googled them and yay for me doing Google. And it said it has a Beaumont phone number, no address, but it does say their mission is of the Black Impact Alliance Foundation of Beaumont is to represent, invest, sustain, and account for the impact of the African diaspora community through its public engagement, effective networking, collaboration with government and private sector. That doesn't sound like a nonprofit. I'm not sure. I'm not trying my head around what these guys do, what this group does, pardon me, because the idea is to have local community groups and nonprofits receive money from the grant. So walk me through that definition of themselves versus the goals of the grant program and how they fit in.
Yeah, well, I know that the woman who leads this group is a Beaumont resident. Yeah, I mean, as far as them being eligible, I believe as long as they have their nonprofit status, then they're eligible to apply for these grants.
Okay, I appreciate that. Councilman Newkirk, Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Good discussion. This is a kind of a first for me. Usually I know the groups that have been on all of the intakes, and this is the first time that I'm not aware of the group. So happy to learn more about them tonight, and the explanation that you brought forward is good. One suggestion I may make on process for administration, because I know the group does get some solid administration support, is some maybe 2 or 3 sentences, the verbalizing that Ms. Ma is doing. I wish that was in text. If there was a little blurb on each group, it would help just me understand who the groups are as we make the decisions. You know, I hope new groups form in Beaumont, and I hope to learn on who all those groups are. And you know, as the mayor resorted to Google to try and learn more, I think it would just be helpful if there was just a whisker more information in the report at the beginning. So thank you for the opportunity to make that suggestion.
Thanks, Councillor. My personal thoughts, I'm a little unsure about giving a brand new group the full 10,000 versus other groups that are proven in the community and have various needs that they need to sort of do what they need to do in the grant versus the funding, and some grant requests versus funding was quite significantly different. In some cases, I'm a little hesitant to give a brand new group to our area a full 10,000 without really knowing a lot about them. I understand what you're saying. It still seems a little vague to me, but they're a nonprofit. I get that's all the criteria. I guess that's pretty wide open, but I think it needs a little more meat to how it's going to benefit our community more specifically than what I've heard so far, but I'll leave that for right now. Councilman McCuff-Swain, do you wish to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, I don't usually, but I've heard a few concerns around this. So let me just throw my support behind it. I think it's great that we've got new groups that are wanting to come here and provide, you know, what sounds like a really great event and to promote, you know, the Black community in Beaumont and support them. So yeah, I think this is a great use. I try to do my best to leave it to you guys who have been assigned to do this. And not get into the weeds. Yeah, I'm pumped for this event, and I wish them the best, and we'll be there to support it. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Move on then to Ruminary. I'll get the pronounce wrong. Ruminary Live Arts. Request was 41, and the grant was 4140. Questions from council on this one? Ashley, you have the floor.
Sure. The only question I had was regarding Ruminary Live. I noticed their sign was down. Can you speak to what's happening with them?
The women came and spoke to our group. They have switched from being a for-profit group to a not-for-profit group. And that happened, I think, about 3 weeks before the applications were due. And so, okay, 3 days, so even shorter. And so this is them still. They're still here. They're just a little bit different.
Okay, and they're still going to be operating under Ruminary Live, I'm assuming?
Yeah, Ruminary Live has now become the nonprofit. They kept the same name.
Thank you. I just noticed when I was driving by, so thank you so much.
Further questions from council? Steve? Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And just to confirm, will they be operating in Beaumont?
Yes, I believe they're still using the same space and everything as they did before.
Okay, yeah, the sign is gone and there's a for lease up on the building now.
I do not know anything about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my question.
Yeah.
I would just like to have some certainty that, that the business and the funds and the money would remain at Beaumont. So.
I believe that grant funding must be used as requested, so they would have to use it for that event, and if they are unable to do so, they will return the money.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity.
Okay. I had a question on that then too, it's a little, it's just odd, that I know when the application went in, Room Your Live Arts was operating in their building. And since the grant applications closed, and here we are today, after the committee did their work, and in good faith, the committee did their work, they're no longer operating there. So I'm just wondering where the festival will be held, who's looking after it. Like, for example, all the other applicants, they're all Beaumont, they're all local. This is kind of an odd situation where the business seems to have closed its doors as a lease sign up, and I'm not too sure what's happening with her. Or her situation,
yeah,
as
well-
far as the grant goes, not her situation in business, as far as the grant's concerned.
Well, like I said, it has been turned to a nonprofit, so it will be operating differently than it did before. And when she came and spoke to us, she indicated they'd be in the same location using the same infrastructure that they had already built up. So if that has changed, we may have to revisit it.
Please,
Sorry.
you can have some clarification.
Sure, if I can offer some perhaps confidence in the administrative process. Once any and all grants are approved here tonight, successful recipients will receive a funding offer letter where it outlines the requirements, reiterates the requirements, I should say, reminding applicants that they're obligated to use the funds as described in their grant application. And it gives them the choice to accept the funding or to decline the funding. And if they choose to decline the funding, they're not penalized for doing so because situations may have changed and therefore they're not in a position to carry through with the project as described. So that would offer some confirmation to City Council that the grant funds will be used as described. It could also provide an opportunity for them to provide an update into any changes and have those changes approved before grant funding is released. And I can also say that administration was not made aware of any changes or changes to the project plan or nonprofit status.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Because this circumstance happened after the grant application went in, so I appreciate that. Councilor Barnard, you had a question on procedure, please, and I'll go out to Councilor McCook.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And thank you. I do appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know that it's never an easy task. My question or my comments, I guess, are around the process in terms of the review of the grant programs. And I know, Ms. Mencher, that you've been working on it. And if it's appropriate to ask you that question, just when are you coming back with changes to the grant process? Grant funding or feedback, perhaps, is the way.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councillor Barnhart, through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart. The review is currently being undertaken. I've got a few meetings set up with a number of groups within the city, busy compiling research, and I'll be presenting back to City Council in June, later this month.
June.
Yeah.
Okay, so for next year, there may or may not be, depending on your recommendations, some changes. And I think to the point that I'm concerned a bit about is that this particular grant program, Councillor McGough-Swain's making the point as well, and I agree, it's more of a seed funding. It helps organizations to get started. It's not meant to be forever. It's meant to be 3 years out of 5, or that type of a process. The challenge with that is there's no place for groups to go. And everybody is struggling to get volunteers. Everyone's struggling to, a nonprofit world is a difficult world, right? And the whole world is difficult, but in terms of trying to put these events on, the costs are not going down, they're going up. And yet after 3 years, you can be cut off here. And I don't think we intended that to be like, just drop organizations. And the other piece of that is that at least 3 of these I know of are events or festivals type thing. That's a very different thing than running an organization and having kind of a need for equipment or materials. We're comparing some apples and oranges here, and it's I just find that this grant is really restricting ongoing sustainable events that have shown to be successful. And to the mayor's point, like, we have successful events here, and I won't go into the details of any of them, but where do they go? Where else can you go to get the funding, sponsorship, grants, maybe it's subsidies. So I think that's a challenge for council. And I just wanted to let you know, that's more my concern about approving this than it is the individuals. I think the individual organizations are worthy and will do a good job with it to the best of their ability. But again, some of the existing organizations are struggling. And I think that's, it sends a mixed message when we say to a group that's been successful, you're not getting any more. That's the end of it. Where do they go? The event stops. And that's a sad day. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, you have the floor, Kat.
Thank you. And thank you for this report. I know there's always a lot of work that goes into this kind of grant review process and everything. And I think you guys did a great job in having a variety of groups. My one question is, especially surrounding some of the questions recently, do we monitor or follow up to see if the grants were utilized as they were supposed to be?
Thank you for the question, Councillor McCook, through Mayor Daniluk. Yes, there is a final reporting requirement. Currently with the Community Grant Fund, 80% of the approved funding is released upon approval. Once a final report is submitted and reviewed by administration, the remaining 20% is released to the group. So through that process, there's a review of, did the project proceed as expected, expenses, revenues, et cetera.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Seeing no further questions from, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Barnhart. Go ahead, please, Kathy.
Just a little slow on the uptake here. I did forget, I did have a second question. Knowing how the Arts Council funding works for the grants, I'm wondering why the Beaumont International Arts Festival came to this grant pot and not to the others. And it looks like you already were expecting that question, so maybe you could give me that answer.
Yeah, we actually were expecting that question. Thank you very much. They became a nonprofit, as Joanna said, 3 days before the grant intakes, and they had missed the intake for the arts project. And so they came through us and we decided to try and fund one of their projects and see how it goes from there.
Okay, appreciate that, Councillor. Thank you very much. All right, seeing no further questions, I will thank the committee for their work. And part of our job is to oversight with taxpayer money and make sure we're on the same page with the committee's understanding of the grants they provided and the amounts that they provided as well too. And sometimes we have to ask questions on that. So we do thank you for your work, and we do have confidence in the committee doing their work, and we just have to make sure we ask questions because people ask us questions. That's kind of the way things work. So appreciate that. So seeing no further questions or comments from council, is a member of council willing to move the motion to accept the report and the recommendations as presented? There should be a motion. Oh, hang on. Councilor Miller?
Yeah, I move that the allocations for the April 2023 community grants be approved as follows. Would you like me to read each one?
Is that necessary, Madam Clerk?
Okay, as presented. Okay.
As presented, you're good. Appreciate that. Discussion on the motion, council. Seeing none, would you please vote on the motion before you? That carries unanimously. Again, thank you to the committee for your work. Always a pleasure. And as we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda this evening is 6.2. Now, I do believe we have a stop at 6:30 for our closed session. I suggest, Madam Clerk, we proceed to that first, if that is agreeable to our administration.
Our presenters are here, so if council is willing, we could fast track that item a little bit.
Yes, we will. We have a session at 6:30 for closed session for the Arts Council. They're here now. So we'll begin with the closed session. Closed session means if you're not invited in the closed session, you have to leave the room until we come back and reconvene after the closed session is over. Is there a member of council willing to move us into closed session, please? That should be a motion on the screen. Councillor Barnhart.
Yes, Mayor, I'd be pleased to make that motion that we move into closed session at 6:24 pursuant to section 24 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none from council. Council, would you please vote on moving into closed session? That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. We will convene in a moment here in closed session. I think everyone's here who needs to be here. I was kind of assuming you would. We're going to ask you, but yeah. That's okay. Always good. All right, we are back in live session after our closed session. We do have a motion that came out of our closed session. I will ask Councillor Barnhart to make that motion when it appears on the screen in a moment. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And before I make the motion, I just want to say thank you to the Arts Council and the work that's gone into putting this together and looking forward to the future of the public art policy in our city. This is a beginning, and then this is a good beginning and the beginning such as fits very well. There you go. So the motion is that the acquisition of the artwork titled Beginnings by Dean Pickup and recommended by the Beaumont Arts Council at a cost of $36,000 to be funded from the 2023 capital budget be approved.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion from council. See no discussion. Council, would you please vote on the motion before you? And that carries unanimously. Thank you again for coming. Great work. Very exciting. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next part of our agenda this evening, which is 6.2 capital projects updates, permanent rink shacks, and Zamboni storage garage. Aaron, you'll be presenting this evening? Sure. You're joined by a couple of colleagues, so yeah. Please, gentlemen, state your names for our record, please. And then when microphone is very directional, please speak into it directly. Move it between you if you need to. We appreciate that. That's the audio, so a little better quality that way for us. Thank you. Please begin when you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Administration, and members of the general public. My name is Aaron Lewicki. I'm Director of Infrastructure with the City of Beaumont. Tonight I have with me Junaid Ahmed, Manager of Municipal Projects for the city, and also Jared Elliott from Select Engineering, who's our consultant who worked on the city developing the concepts associated with these projects. This evening, we are presenting a report with options and recommendations for the further progression of the permanent rink shack and Zamboni storage garage projects. As you are aware, Council approved both these projects in the 2023 capital budget. $475,000 was approved for the rink shacks at 3 locations at the outdoor boarded rinks, and $140,000 was approved for the Zamboni storage garage located at J. LaPointe. These projects were proposed as part of a 5-year capital plan proposed to council. The rink shacks were proposed for design in 2024, with construction planned in 2025. As a result, the estimates provided in the 5-year capital plan had not gone through a design exercise to allow refinement of the scope and budget to accurately reflect the cost to build these structures. The costs provided in the 5-year plan were intended to be refined as part of the design process proposed in 2024. Following budget approval in 2022, in December 2022, engagement with user groups and project scoping was undertaken to allow for development of preliminary costing and concept designs. Our consultant developed the concept designs and respective estimate costs for these concepts, which are provided in attachment 2. Concepts for Bellevue and Dance Row are basic and include heated washroom, heated change room structures ranging between 425 and 675 square feet, while the design for J.E. LaPointe was more extensive due to the combining of the Zamboni storage garage and the rink shack structure. The facility proposed at this location would include a 1,325 square foot heated structure that includes water and sewer servicing, a public washroom, a Zamboni storage bay, and a mechanical room. The decision to include a washroom at this location was due to the lesser incremental costs associated with installing the washroom in the building as the servicing was already proposed in the building itself. Upon reviewing estimated costs associated with constructing the structures presented in attachment 2, there are inadequate funds available to complete the full scope of work in our approved budget. Part of the rationale for the increased cost for servicing costs for the J. LaPointe location The cost to service location with water and sewer services was considerably more than anticipated. As a result, administration has developed several options for council consideration as proposed in the report. One option is to complete the full scope of work, which would cost $1.675 million or $1,675,000. The impact associated with approving this option are mainly associated with the potential that the full scope may not be completed in time for skating season. And this may impact operation of the outdoor boarded rink if the scope is partially completed. Option 2 is to complete design and construction of the Bellevue and Dance Row rink shacks in 2023 and revise the scope of work for Zamboni Storage Garage to include the design of J. LaPointe Rink Shack and Zamboni Storage Garage for 2023. The impact of this option includes lack of an outdoor rink at J. LaPointe, increased cost for operation of Zamboni, as well as requirement for funding in a future year to fund the remainder of construction costs to build the J. LaPointe Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage. As detailed in the report, administration is recommending option 2 for the following reasons. This allows for completion of 2 rink shacks in 2023, maintain consistent rink shack presence at Bellevue, as we've always had a rink shack there historically. Also allows for further refinement of design for J. LaPointe, as this is the most complex location of the 3 to complete and getting the design completed. A complete rink shack at Dance Row would also allow for small children to enjoy both the free skate area and others to enjoy the outdoor boarded rink more effectively. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. I will open the floor to questions. Any questions council may have regarding this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewicki. Appreciate the presentation. I'm sure we have some council questions coming up, and I will begin. First off, the T is Councillor Tessier. Renee, you have the floor for questions.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a big difference from what we just approved not many months ago, right? It's not like, oh, it's a $55,000 change or whatever. So just a little bit of history here. At budget, we were like, okay, we're going to do 3 shacks. It was $615,000. That sounds like a lot to me just for technically sheds at that point, besides the JE one, right? So when we upped that one at the budget. So again, it's just heat and power. How did it get to $1,060,000 for 3 sheds? And one of them, yes, being it needs water and heat, but I know it's like, okay, well, the increase is the servicing. So how is it that much more for just power? We have lights at the rinks, things like that. There must be power on the ground. So I need some good background information on how this number drastically got to this point.
I can't speak, excuse me. I can't speak to what the previous numbers, where they came from. Within our exercise, what we did is we looked at each location, how we would service those with water, power, sewer, and gas. So each location has its own challenges due to mainly where the rinks were built, kind of in the back, away from most of the infrastructure. So there's infrastructure cost to bring it to the backs of these areas, because they're mostly in green spaces and that sort of thing. So how does those costs increase? I guess everything just adds up at the end of it. I can't speak to where the original numbers came from and what it included within our exercise. That's how we came up with those numbers. With the buildings themselves, you alluded to just a shed type thing. They're more than that. I mean, they are a simple structure for sure, but as soon as you put people in them, of course, they have to be a commercial specified building, right? So you got to have the proper insulation in there. We've got good siding structures on there. We've got torch down membrane roofs. So these are a very well built structure. The doors are steel. The glass is the shatterproof glass where, the pucks won't go through it, that sort of thing. The insides have rubber coatings on the floor, vandal proof wall systems in there. vandal-proof lights. So it's not just a simple structure, you know, even the door lock sets, those sort of things, everything's commercial grade, so it's a lot heavier quality. So that all those costs do add up.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that explanation. For $615,000, is it like, say it was like, that's your cost? Can you do 3 for that? And what would that look like? Right? Like, are there, to me, I understand there's like specific codes we have to follow as a city in commercial buildings, but I'm just really shocked that it's over $1 million for, I still consider them as 2 of the 3 would be a shed. And we don't need to build like this amazing shack to make it look unbelievable. We need like a heated spot for kids to change their skates out of, is what my vision is. I don't know about anyone else here, but I understand making it look nice, but you know, I want this to happen, but at this price, it's impossible to. Like, even at the 615, it was a push here at the table.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, we did go through some different exercises to look at options and costs. And initially, we even considered servicing with washrooms in these facilities, just to see what that would look like. As you can imagine, that's much more, because we would have to bring in sewer and water to those locations. So we cut that out completely, provided basically a small change room. As Mr. Elliott had mentioned, we need to make those facilities durable. We saw with the portable rig shack we had over the winter at Bellevue. I mean, they were ripping the lights out of it. Like, I mean, nobody hears about this stuff, but it was constantly needing repair, and it just doesn't hold up. So we needed to make sure that if we're going to build something like this, it has to be done with those right fixtures. Also, on the outside, we have to use certain materials, certain design looks in accordance with our Centreville area redevelopment plan. Those items aren't necessarily, I mean, you couldn't put vinyl siding on it, for instance, right? You couldn't use asphalt shingles. Like, you have to have a certain look and certain coloring. There's all these guidelines and codes that we have to follow in order to make this compliant, in order to install this in this location. So we tried to work with that. Mr. Elliott and his team did what we asked, as far as, let's make a basic structure in accordance with all of the applicable regulations, codes, bylaws, so on. And this is what we ended up with. So just a little bit more context.
Totally. And I can appreciate, like, I am frustrated, and that's just how I feel at the moment, because I do want this, but at both the numbers, in personal view, how do you justify that? Right. So, yeah, difficult conversation, interested to see what others say. So, and thank you for the answers. Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor to the council.
You're on. Yes, you're on.
Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to give you the explanation for that thing as well. So the line items that were put into the budget for these shacks for 2024 and 2025 were basically a Class D estimate with minimum information given to us as well for those numbers. As we go further and dive into the details of the structures we want to develop, that's where the estimate gets bumped up with numbers, with Mr. Elliott and Mr. Libby has already mentioned with those things, that once we go into the details of what really want to put in a proper structure for X number of years, because we are building a permanent structure in these locations. That's what we are recommending. And if we build a permanent structure, we don't look back to it to replace it for 35 years. That's how the lifespan would work for any of those structures going. Absolutely. The maintenance costs would be there for sure. But as we proceed with getting the details into the design and what we require, and as how our approvals from the planning guides us to the standards and specifications for those conditions that we have to meet, from asphalt. We can't use those asphalt shingles on the roof and the sidings on the building. Like, it has to be done. That adds the cost to it. And that's where these numbers basically came up. These are still basic structures, internally speaking, with just the change room in it, with heat and electricity to it, for Bellevue and Dance Row location. J.E. Lapointe, absolutely, because Zamboni needs the sewage and the water. That's why we have to pull in those services into that. That adds the cost to it. So that's the explanation to those numbers, basically.
Totally, and I appreciate that answer. Just, I know it's digging deep, but why can't we do asphalt shingles? Just information I just want to know as well.
So as per our Santerville area development guidelines, there are certain rules that we have to follow in that area, that we have to abide to certain looks in that area. And that does not allow us to proceed with those things on commercial buildings as well as the public use buildings. It has to be certain criteria that we have to meet, and that basically we have to follow those ones.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
One last thing,
Oh,
sorry to
Mr.
mention
Rebecca,
that.
yeah.
The numbers provided are still estimates at this point. We don't have bids received that says this is the actual number. Bids that come in could be less, they could be more. We don't know that until we bid. Because we had such a variance in the costing, we felt it prudent to come to council with an update, say, here's where we're at. Where do we want to go from here before we further commit any effort to this?
Totally, yeah, thank you for that. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. I have Counselor Miller, followed by Counselor Newkirk, followed by Counselor McCook. So Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just to provide a little bit of background, when you said you didn't know where those costs came from. The report does read that the revised cost estimates completed by the city's design consultant are based on previous projects completed of a similar size and scope. However, there still may be discrepancies between the estimates and actual pricing received. Then it goes into talk about there'll be a release, a tender for construction, and receive bids from contractors. So that, to me, that's stating the proposed 475 and 140 in the budget was based on previous projects. Can you clarify that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller, maybe the report wasn't quite clear enough. That was referring to the estimates provided by Mr. Elliott's team, which would be what the revised costs are, not the initial costs that were provided in the budget. My apologies for the
No,
confusion.
that's okay. So I think, I have a whole bunch of questions that I could get into regarding, the components of the estimate and the material and the guidelines and all of those things. For me, I think this may be more of a question for admin is what is the process for capturing costs in the budget? And what is the stopgap like to confirm that these estimates are as accurate as they can be at budget time so that we don't run into the, increase of this substantial increase?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller, what our stopgap is with that is, and this was, I guess, unfortunate in the sense of the initial plan was to do the design and engagement efforts in 2024 to get these costs more refined down to a, I don't know, a class B estimate or what have you to before we take it to budget. In this case, these numbers were projected out over a number of years and then were pulled into 2023 for build. And we weren't able to have that accuracy at the time.
So for me, that's a lack of communication because, we put this in the budget, we approved, we had this discussion regarding the costs at the time. And we knew, might be a little bit of fluctuation here or there, but this is substantial. I mean, we've got printed brochures, we've got papers stating that we're bringing these to the residents. And I just feel like I completely let them down or was misinformed. And so this is disappointing. I want to move forward with this, but I can't at all, move forward with these costs. So I look forward to more of the discussion. And then one last thing I was going to say is I really hope we're looking at different options for these three buildings, because I understand that we have guidelines according to the Beaumont Centreville look or the windows or whatever it may be, but we're talking about a small building that provides heat. What I was hoping for washrooms, because that's going to be a challenge for people to change their skates. I understand there is materials involved that have to be accounted for, but I really hope that these bids are thoroughly looked upon and scrutinized. So I look forward to hearing what others have to say.
Okay. One thing I'll remind council, this time is just for questions, as and we'll get into debate about the merits of the construction process down the road at some point, if at all, not construction process, just the approval process. Try and keep your questions more as to the presentation and the dollar figures. Councillor, CEO Schwartz, you have something you want to add to the conversation at this point?
Yes, there is, to council through you, the mayor. I just want to remind council that we're presenting information based on the best of our ability. And there's no plan to try and give you false information and then come back afterwards. I get the feeling from at least two of the councillors that that's the conversation that we're having right now, is we're debating what happened and why didn't you know this? Quite frankly, it's irrelevant. We've got facts in front of us. We have costs in front of us. To me, that's what should be debated. And I agree with you, Mayor Daniluk, if there's questions, it should be for clarification. But it's like council's debating with admin right now, and I don't think that's helping anybody.
Thank you. You're done, Ashley?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor McCook. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. For myself, I think this is good work, and we need to know what this is. We got what we asked for in the budget process, and thank you guys for putting pen to paper on these costs. One of the challenges that I had in my head was, how on earth are they gonna do something at JE? And I can tell by the pictures that, it's a long thought out process, and there's earthworks involved and a whole bunch there, right? Because the history is that when the rinks were concepted in the locations they were, I don't think that we supposed shoehorning shacks in here as well, which I mentioned at budget as well. So, but yeah, just thank you for the work. Mayor, I do have a motion I want to put forward. So whenever the appropriate time for that is, I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go through continuing questions and then comments in general, and then I will entertain any motion. Steve, I'll start with you as you brought it forward already. Councillor Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Tessier, for some of your questions and for the answers, especially around the additional pieces as to how it has to be built to ensure that it doesn't get vandalized and stuff like that. I think that piece was missing. And so that additional understanding is helpful to understand where some of the costs are coming from. I just have a question for clarity. If remind me what we're doing with the Zamboni. If the Zamboni storage is not built, what are the ramifications of it? And does that mean it parks outside, or please remind me where we're at with that?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook. Currently, we have Zamboni facilities available. It's just a matter of working through parking them in different locations, and it's not as convenient as having it at J. LaPointe because it's a very close proximity for J. LaPointe and for Bellevue. But currently, the Zamboni garage was not planned for build till 2020. I don't even remember the year, 2026. So. Okay. There are provisions to allow for us to continue operations that way. It's
okay.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I just wasn't sure kind of where we were at with that. And then, so in option 2, the 140 for the Zamboni garage and rink shack, is that total for that one? Or is there still the 270 additional? So if we just built the Zamboni garage and shack, what is the total for that at JE?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook. So yes, there would be, sorry, I'm just trying to.
That's okay. Take your time.
Yeah, there'd be the 270 for building the 2 rink shacks in 2023. And then the 140 would be for design of the Zamboni garage and design of the detailed final design for the Zamboni garage. And any remaining funds that would be from that would be returned back to the
Towards it.
funding and could be used for future projects.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Again, I also appreciate, one thing I will say is that you guys live and breathe this stuff every day. I don't. And sometimes I find this report, it's very thorough. I read it the first time, made perfectly good sense. Read it again today, and I got a couple of questions, so bear with me, okay? So on the content of the report, we approved 615,000. Just, I'm going to dumb it down for my personal reasons, okay? If other counselors already know this, I'll bear with me. Was that for the one shack at the Bellevue rink? Just what I'm getting at is exactly how many shacks will we expect to get back at budget versus what the numbers are now? As Council mentioned, numbers have increased dramatically, and that's going to make us have to make some decisions based on that. So walk me through again what the 615,000 was for when we approved the 2023 capital budget.
To the mayor, at the start of the report, you'll notice there's a table, and basically it outlines what was approved in the capital budget. So we've got permanent rink shacks, design, engage, build permanent rink shacks at the 3 locations for 475. And then the Zamboni storage garage was approved as a separate project for 140,000 at J. LaPointe as well.
Right. Okay, that does help me. I appreciate that. So, okay. I had my train of thought, I lost my train of thought. Give me a second. I saw Councilor Barnhart had a question, so I'll come back after Councilor Barnhart asks her a question if I could. So Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it's significant, the change, and I understand the reasons why. But I guess I'm wondering, is there a third option here to not do all 3? And what's the impact of maybe doing this incrementally rather than all 3 at the same time? So I think I can anticipate what you might say, but could you maybe, is that a third option?
Through the mayor to Councilor Barnhart, are you saying that you would like to do one shack? Is that what you're?
Oh,
Sorry, that was me, my bad.
okay.
I'm looking at options here to get this project moving. And I think council, in a sense, caused the problem by saying, don't do the design, go right to the construction. I think we sped things up because we know the citizens want this and we want it to. But this is really significant in terms of increase. What I'm wondering is there an option to do less than the full project, stage it over time? Maybe that's the difference. It's not about spending it all in this. I know it's a 5-year budget, so maybe that's what you're going to tell me, is that it's over 5 years. Is that the answer to my question? Like, we wouldn't save any money. This is going to happen over a number of years.
Through the mayor to Councilor Barnhart, those are options. They're definitely options. I know that there's a desire to have these in place sooner than later. We did provide option 1, which was the full scope. Option 2, which is our recommendation at this point, would be the two lesser shacks at Dance Row as well as Bellevue. There could be other options to do one of these locations and spread them out through a couple of years. That's also an option. We are already doing work at Bellevue for part of there's another project that's approved at Bellevue for the utilities and parking lot upgrades. I would suggest that location, if any location was to be constructed, that one would be the most important one, only from the fact that there is construction work going on there already. Beyond that, yes, there's different options that could be considered for spreading it out. And there's also an opportunity to refine these estimates, get them to final design, and then we have them ready to be tendered. Now, if we don't put them forward in the next budget, though, there is a chance that costs will change and they'll need to be reassessed again prior to the next budget to make sure that, like, if inflation keeps going up or the cost of something gets more or less, we may have to adjust costs, but at least we'd have a design that we could use to have those refined costs and more in hand.
Does that help clarify? Okay, good. So I guess I was going back to my original question. Let's stop for a second there. So I know when we decommissioned the Bellevue rink, we had to reposition it and rebuild it, and it did a great job, by the way. My expectation was, I think, that we're going to replace the shack there because it was a shack there before. We're going to replace it. The discussion was adding 2 new shacks to the 2 new outdoor rinks that were added to it. So in that 615,000 that's already been allocated, just for argument's sake, would that be enough to finish the entire shed at the Bellevue rink? Because that, again, these prices have gone up since our initial capital budget. So just got my head around, you mentioned 1 shack, Councilor Barnes, to give me an idea, that 650 we've already allocated, would that be sufficient to finish off the existing Bellevue rink that needs to be replaced from having been taken down before?
Thank you for the question. To the mayor, absolutely, that is a possibility because
Okay.
that 615 can definitely be enough to us to basically deliver that Bellevue ring shack. As long as like the work that is being done already on the Bellevue Phase 2 project for the parking lot improvement and the drainage improvement. And that's why, as per the comments from my director as well, that is the most feasible location. If you want to proceed with any ring this year, would be our recommendation as well to proceed at that one. And that 615 can definitely feed into that. Absolutely.
Thank you for clarifying my question. At this point, I will simply ask for any more clarifying questions. Councilor Newkirk has a motion he wants to make, which I'll get to him in a moment. Seeing no further clarifying questions, again, gentlemen, thank you for the report. As Steve said, we got what we asked for, and the report is very detailed. It does give us a lot of information, and I think sticker shock is a reasonable thing to say in this economy and inflation the way it is, but it's much more than I anticipated, honestly. Inflation has been a thing for everybody, but this is a much bigger number than I anticipated, honestly. I think that has some validity to being a little bit frustrated, not with you, with the situation and the information in the report. It is what it is, as the saying goes. So I'll thank you for that. At this point, I will entertain the motion from Councilor Van Newkirk. Gentlemen, would you mind staying with us for a few more minutes before we take your seats? And we may have some more questions that may come from debate on the motion. Okay? We're good, Council. Move on to a motion stage. Councilor Van Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor for your motion.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, I would move that design and construction of the 3 rink shacks in Zamboni Garage approved as part of the 2023 capital budget be postponed to a future year, and that by the 2024 budget process, administration prepare a report on options, including considerations that could decrease the cost of these projects. And I would speak to that motion.
Please do.
Yeah, as I said before, I think we got what we asked for in the report, and I thank the presenters for that. I think now that we've seen the scope and scale of what it would take to do this, what I heard from the room is it's a little much, and that's definitely where my head is at too. So the intent of this motion, report on options, including considerations that could decrease the costs of this project, perhaps could include a 3-sided open structure, a closed structure that's not heated, and then we know what the full meal deal is going to cost. So at least if the design work could be done to consider some other ways to deliver a product that potentially starts with a 3-sided open structure. Yes, that is cold and not heated. Yes, that could fill with snow, but it would have a roof on it, all the way to, what we have in front of us now. I think that would be a prudent place to restart this conversation. I would like to get to a yes on this, but given the numbers in front of us tonight, I just can't get there. So that's the motion I've put forward tonight, and looking forward to see what council has to say on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Pardon me. Thank you, Councillor. I'll go to Councillor Monkoff-Swain for his comments, and then Councillor Miller. And I've got a couple of thoughts myself. I'll put in there somewhere along the way. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. And a lot of good information in front of us. For the record, I think it's totally fair to asked the questions on how the process changed, how the capital cost increased. We got the answers tonight, so thank you for that. With regards to the motion that's here, I'm of two minds. At the end of the day, these rinks, they're not going to get cheaper, to your point. If we want them, the cost is the cost, right? And these guys are trying to prepare the items in front of us based on our guidelines that we've put in front of them. And so, the cost of the rinks are there. If we go back and ask administration to look at decreasing the costs, then I think we're effectively restarting at zero, which is, I think, what you're getting to here. So, I mean, bigger picture, we all decided that we want and should have these rink shacks for our residents. If we think this number is too high for what the value we think we're going to get, then I don't know that Edmund's going to be able to come back and decrease the cost of these projects. I'm not sure what you're trying to. I know you're trying to keep this alive, but for me, it's either we go ahead with the design that's in front of us, or we don't. Yeah, I just wanted, I'm waiting on this because I know that a lot of folks were kind of more passionate on it, but yeah, for me, all I can say is, they're going to come back and produce a building that's not going to fit within our guidelines. It's not going to be what residents ultimately want. And then we're going to pay for a building that's not going to fit the needs for the community, and it's going to cost a lot more maintenance, a lot more in upgrades later on, and then we're just paying for it further down the road. So personally, I think we should have a debate on whether we move forward with this or not, but I do appreciate you tabling it, and I'll see where everyone else goes on this one. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Okay, so Sam just kind of threw a wrench in there, like got my thoughts going. No, I get what you're saying, but now I'm kind of wondering. So I think my perspective on this is that the decreased cost could come out of the design change. So like Steve had alluded to, whether it's a 3-sided unheated building or something like that. But the only cost the only question that poses for me, if we do that, is if that meets the standards of our community or whatever guidelines we have in place, is that even an option in our community to have something other than what you're proposing now? So I don't know where we go with that. It would be nice to have like 3 or 4 options in front of us, but then again, we asked for this to go right to construction this fast. So, this was what we got to, and you haven't had time to do that. You also talk about how, it has to go out to tender still. You still have to evaluate bids. Maybe there might be some leeway there with costs, and it might not actually hit the total amount that you proposed. So that's another area that there could be costs that weren't spent. In that case, those costs would go back into the grant. Yeah. So that was just my comments right now. I'll let Councillor McCook say her comments.
Yeah, I'll jump in first before I go to Councillor McCook. Bear with me just for a moment, okay? The previous council, the 4 of us participated in, built the first 2 outdoor rinks in Beaumont in over almost 30 years and did a great job. That they were well designed. People love them. They're well lit. They're properly constructed. They're 30-year rinks. Great work. We didn't build the rinks with heated shacks. There wasn't, in my mind, a large uproar from the community not having shacks. In my opinion, there wasn't. This current council brought forth the idea of doing heated shacks. And my initial thoughts were, it's nice to have. No, let me go back one thing. When we redid the Bellevue rink after being there for 30 years, we were going to replace it as it was. My expectation was the rink would be replaced and the shack would be replaced as well. It was there before, we'd replace it again. The debate then became in this current council of adding 2 new shacks to the existing 2 brand new outdoor rinks. To me, they're nice to have, but they're not a need, in my personal opinion. But when the motion came forward, I thought, well, that number, I could probably support it. These numbers here, I have difficulty supporting the addition of 2 new shacks at the present time on the 2 rinks. We do, in my opinion, need to continue to replace the existing shack that was taken away with the rink redesign. The way I read this motion from Councillor Van Newkirk is it'll essentially also halt the Bellevue rink shack, which should be replaced. It was there previously. So I know where Councilor Van Nucker's is going with this. I think I do anyhow, and I understand where you're coming from, but I'm having a little trouble getting my head around if I vote yes, then Bellevue would not proceed is how I interpret this motion, which I believe council was committed to replacing, is already there. So I just, food for thought, Steve, on that. I think my personal opinion is the two new rinks sheds at this kind of dollar figure, I'm having trouble getting there. I'd rather we build one shack really well, which in my mind has to be Bellevue because it was there previously. That's kind of where I'm at with the discussion based on the motion before me now. Having said that, Councilor McCook, followed by Councilor Tessier. Pat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you kind of went down the path I was going to go down a little bit. And I think if we're going to consider this, then I know Mr. Lewicki also mentioned that currently there is some construction at Bellevue. And so we could kind of piggyback on that while we're building. And so my concern would be if we halt everything, then we kind of lose that aspect, especially when construction costs are so expensive and everything is so expensive as it is. So I think if building some shacks is kind of the way that council wants to go, I would lean towards still going through with the Bellevue one, because we can take advantage of the construction that is already occurring there. And to your point, Mayor, kind of the plan was to do it before anyway. So to move forward with that. So that's my only concern around this NOM that we have in front of us.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate the comments. Councilor Tessier, followed by Councilor Barnard, followed by Councilor Miller, which will start Councilor Miller with round two when I get make sure everyone's a chance to talk on round one. Councilor Tessier.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, good discussion on this topic. And I agree with you. And, you know, the first time you're like, okay, we can make this happen. That's not the case. So just, I hear what Councilor Van Newkirk's trying to do here in this motion. And I don't know, I go back and forth on it, but I looked up a whole bunch of different communities, and it's not like other communities has rink shacks at every rink too. So I think like my temperature is starting to go the direction of doing the Bellevue rink for now as well. So at least we have one rink and continue on that path maybe. And for the cost and instead of, you know, even option two, looking at it, it's a lot more money. The only concern I have is the JE LaPointe Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage that could present an opportunity with Baja at some point too, and ensuring that that's maybe that could lead to some time and maybe open discussion on expanding that project even. So my temperature would be a third option and just moving forward with Bellevue at this moment. So I don't think I would support this right now, but totally understand where you're coming from, Councillor. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate the comments. Councillor Barnard, followed by Councillor Miller when I go to round two. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you, Mayor. And that's where my head is at as well, is one out of three is what we can afford at this point, I think. And so I wouldn't support the motion, not because I don't understand it or appreciate it. I do appreciate Councillor Van Newkirk bringing it up because it pushes the decision making. And I think that's what we needed to do. I think we have all agreed that Bellevue is the priority at this point. And what I'm not clear on is the cost of doing Bellevue plus the Zamboni garage. I'm wondering if are you able to even come close? Is the 615 going to be enough for those two pieces?
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, the complication with the Zamboni garage was that it was meant to be built at JE LaPointe as part of the structure of the rink shack with JE LaPointe. So to build the rink shack at JE LaPointe, or sorry, to build the Zamboni storage garage at JE LaPointe without the rink shack would be, the idea was they were one building in the concept that we provided.
Mm-hmm.
So
given that, I would agree with the one shack at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes round one of discussion and debate on the motion before us. I will go into round two. Councilor Miller, Councilor Newkirk has his hand up. We might as well go to him first, being how was his motion.
I'd like to just get this motion done.
Okay, yeah, that's what we need to do. Okay, so you have a motion, not a question for round two? Okay, then we'll go to Councillor Van Newkirk. You're up first, Steve. And then I have Councillor Monkoff Swain for round two on this motion. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. No, I thank council for talking through this. The purpose of this motion is to try and move a logjam. And it feels like we might have gained a little steam to remove a logjam here. But just looking through some math. So what's recommended in the report is an increase to 745,000. You divide that by two, we're 372,500 a shack. So, that's to my original point, that's still a lot of money for a structure. What we gain is that Bellevue is already under construction. I get that. What we gain is a little bit of servicing there. I get that. But what this doesn't do is examine any other options that we may have to further reduce costs. But the other thing that can be considered and was pointed out is that the RFP process may bring back some costs. I very much take Councillor Monkoff Swain's point that if we build the wrong thing, and spend 180 grand instead of 372, the public's not going to like it anyways. So there's that as well. One of the things I've said today and often is things cost way more than you think. And today is definitely, and we're experiencing that. The other thing that I would say is that funding design, looking at options and doing construction is often phased that way and proposed that way for administration for a reason. And I think we're by trying to speed up process, this is where we end up, is with a challenge just like this. That being said, it would be my preference to vote on this motion, Mayor, and see where it lands. And then the discussion could be continued. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Monkoff Swain, do you wish to speak to? No, you're good. All right, you have a motion coming at you. So we're going to vote on this motion first and then see where it lands. And then we'll begin the continued discussions on this topic. So any further questions for administration or for Councillor Newkirk on his motion? Councillor Tessier.
If this motion passed, can another motion come forward to still push one other option?
No, I would assume not, because the way the motion reads, it would be postponing all three rink shacks to a future year as part of the 2024 budget process. Madam Clerk, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Mr. Mayor, you're quite right. So we wouldn't want to have a motion that contradicts another motion. So this motion is directing that these projects be temporarily postponed and that administration come back with a report that includes options on decreasing costs for the projects.
Copy. Thank you.
You're good? Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, council. Yes, would you mind reading your motion one more time for clarity purposes, please? Oh, thank you, Steve. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I can do that. I would move that the design and construction of the three rink shacks and Zoboni Garage approved as part of the 2023 capital budget be postponed to a future year, and that by the 2024 budget process, administration prepare a report on options, including considerations that could decrease the cost of these projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, Council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you, please. Ashley, you wish to vote? Oh, okay. That motion is defeated. No. Hang on. Hang on, did I got in front of my screen here. Sorry, I've got answers for everybody on my screen, but not on that screen. I have 1 in favor, 5 no's, and 1 abstain. We can't abstain, can we? I didn't think so. That's why I'm kind of curious. You? No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's what's showing on my screen. It seemed like an odd vote. I've never seen abstain before. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so the vote is defeated 6-1. Councilman Newkirk voted in favor of the motion. Defeated, 6-1. Sorry, I just seemed so weird. My screen went weird on me there. Sorry? Did I do something wrong? Okay, why don't you shoot it off now? Sam, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wonder, I think you're hearing the intention before we table a motion and then look to reword it and all that sort of stuff. I think you're hearing the intention from council is to do one. And so I'm just curious on your recommendation on which one based on the numbers that we have, and including the Zamboni piece.
I'll come back to Ms. Boucher in a moment. You want to answer Sam's question as best you could, please? If you're able to,
So
Mr. Lewicki.
we'll make obviously it's our call on where these are going to go, right? But based on the design stuff that you've been looking at and where you think these, particularly the Zamboni piece should go, I'm just curious if you could clarify that.
Well, actually, hang on, before we do, let's make the motion first for, if it is one location, then we can ask the clarifying question of administration on the motion. Ms. Boucher, would you have to weigh in on this?
I believe that Councillor Miller would like to put forward option 2 as a motion, so that would be the recommendation in the report. I can display that on the screen and perhaps Councillor Miller can move her motion and then speak to her motion.
Okay.
And
Councillor,
my apologies if I misunderstood, but that
No,
was
that's
my
correct.
understanding.
Yeah, so my motion is that an amendment to the 2023 capital budget to increase funding for the permanent Rink Shack project in the amount of $270,000 from $475,000 to $745,000 from grant funding be approved, and that the project scope be reduced by removing the construction of one skate shack at J.E. LaPointe, and that the scope of the 2023 Zamboni Storage Garage capital project be changed to the design of the Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage at J.E. LaPointe, and that the name of the project be changed to J.E. LaPointe Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage. So I'll speak to my motion.
please.
Okay, so first of all, we were proposed 2 options provided by administration, not 3, and we're kind of technically discussing a 3rd option with this elimination of one rink. So that's where I was getting confused. I just had to put that out there is we're talking about a totally different option. To me, what I'm looking at in front of me is option 1 and option 2. Option 2 to me, you know, I know that we've already discussed at length the fact that these are not ideal in cost. But the way I look at it is $270,000 increase to obtain 2 as opposed to close to $1 million to obtain the 3 is quite a difference. So I'm in favor, and I think personally that we should shoot for the construction of the 2. And then the J.E. LaPointe and Zamboni Garage can be discussed in the future. And I know, yeah, no, I'll just leave it at that. That's my thought on that. I'd rather see the construction of 2 for this cost, like we discussed. It's not going down, or it's not going to go down for the construction of what is proposed in front of us. If we want to retailer it, then that's a whole nother discussion. But for what we have in front of us, I say we go. And I'll open it up to the rest of council.
Thank you, Counselor. Quick question then along the lines of what Sam was saying, but not a recommendation, but more clarification that from the previous discussion, the 615,000 we've already allocated is more than enough to finish off the Bellevue shack, correct? So it shouldn't take the entire 615 to do the Bellevue shack. Is that I don't ask you for a specific number, but it won't take the whole 615, will it?
To the mayor, the 615 should cover the cost of the Bellevue Rink Shack. Of course, as I mentioned before, until we take it to tender, we won't know, but that should cover it based on what we understand.
Thank you. So I'm going to read the motion now. Going from 475 to 745, only increase to 270. If 615 will do Bellevue, 270 won't do a second shack. That's what I'm reading in this motion. So can you clarify that for me? Maybe I'm missing something, but if roughly 600 will do the Bellevue shack, the extra 270 will not get us a second shack.
But to the mayor, completion of the Bellevue Rink Shack won't take the entire 615 based on our estimates.
Right.
So there would be some room left in there plus the 270. So if we do the 270 with our estimated costs, that should get us what we do to do the two. That's what we came up with the numbers. The 615 was to build the 3 shacks, or the 615 was initially to build the 3 shacks in the Zamboni garage. The 615 is not the estimate to build Bellevue. That's not the right comparison. Bellevue Rink Shack was less than that. So the Bellevue Rink Shack would be done for less than 615, plus the 270 would get you the rest for the Dansero Shack.
Okay, so before I go to Councilor Monkoff Swain, just let me finish that thought then. So the maximum spend with this motion would be 745. That's what it says in the motion, and that'll get us the 2 shacks. So I'm not sure how we go from 745 to 1.6 million for the 3rd shack. I'm sorry, I'm not being facetious. I'm not trying to muddy the waters, get my head around this.
To the mayor,
Based on the motion.
that's fair. The 3rd shack, the J. LaPointe Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage is significantly larger than the other 2.
Right.
It has water service, it has sewer service, it has a washroom, it has a mechanical room. It's a larger structure. So the cost to build that single structure is significantly more than both of the other 2.
That's what I was, yeah, that sounds familiar now. Thank you for clarifying. Councilor Monkoff Swain, Sam, you have the floor on this motion discussion.
I think you clarified it. So basically for an additional 270,000, the residents will see a rink shack at Bellevue and a rink shack at Dansero.
I'm seeing a nod.
Through the mayor to Councillor.
Yeah, I'm just for people watching. Yeah.
Yes,
thank you.
that is the idea based on the estimates. As I mentioned before, we have to wait for the bids to come in, but ideally, that's what our estimates are telling us.
Okay, thank you.
You good, Sam? Thank you. Next question would be Councilor McCook. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you. My only concern here is that will we eventually need the Zamboni garage due to space constraints?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook, it is part of our facility planning, yes.
Yeah, so I think for me, with my concern with building the 2 is that I think eventually the Zamboni garage will have to be a priority due to our space constraints in other buildings. So then I think eventually within probably likely a few years, we're going to be looking at building that one. So are we willing to put the 1.6 or more, because it will be built in future years and will cost us more money? So I don't know that I'm in favor of this. I think I'm still in favor of moving forward with the Bellevue and moving forward with the design of the Zamboni and the shack at JE. If that is an option, because I think that to me would take precedent over building one at Dansero. That's just kind of where my thoughts are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate those comments. Councilor Newkirk, Steve, you next. You have the floor, followed by Councilor Tessier.
Yeah, thank you. My light was on trying to clarify some of the math that we were hearing there, but I believe I've followed everything that has been through, and what Councillor McCook just expressed also helped me a bit. So option 2 as it stands right now would be a 745 total for 2 shacks. That would be for Bellevue and Dansero, correct? So $372,500 a shack, you know, if you take the lump and you divide it by 2. Fair or not fair, that's just how everyone will look at the numbers. The second part of it is the to Councillor McCook's point on the Zamboni garage and the design funding. So in this scenario here, can you clarify what happens to the the rink shack and Zamboni. In option 2, the design still stays for that. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. Yes, or sorry, Van Newkirk. This option allows us to build the 2 rink shacks as well as do the design for the J.E. LaPointe rink shack and Zamboni storage garage. So that would get us our best estimate prior to being able to tender it out so that we would have those numbers.
Okay. And another dollars and cents question. The 270 from grants, do we have any indication of the dent that'll leave in the grant pool, where we still sit? I believe we were 2 million some left. Does anyone have that information?
Mr. Schwartz?
I don't have the exact number, but we did speak to finance earlier this afternoon, and we're told that that's exactly what we do, is we would use grant dollars, and then at next year's budget, we would do some juggling around reserves. So we would be okay to do that.
Okay.
But what the outstanding balance is, I couldn't tell you.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, that's all the clarifying questions I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Tessier to round out the first round of questions on the motion at this point. Renee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and good conversation thus far. And I want to get these. It's hard for me to wrap around my head $750,000 for 2 rink shacks. And growing up here, spent tons of time in Bellevue, though, right? Those are great memories where you're not just sitting on the bench, right? So I'm 50-50 right now on how I feel. The one thing I like about option 2 is it does get us that design for the Zamboni garage that we're going to need regardless. It would be a huge asset to have all our rinks with rink shacks. But it's going to be a great experience. It's going to hopefully lessen the load on the current rinks we have indoors. But yeah, just given a temperature here, I don't know which way I'm going at this moment, but I want to have them. I just don't know if I'm comfortable with the number they're at. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor. Appreciate that. And I apologize. I do believe in the report, it does say roughly 930,000 is the anticipated spend to do a shack and a Zamboni at LaPointe. So it's roughly just under $1 million. So the whole 1.6 is reduced by about $1 million roughly to get us to the 740,000 ish. So I apologize, not exactly clear, but I'm still going back to your math there, getting my head around the numbers. So I have Councilor Markgraf Swain, followed by Councilman Newkirk. Sam?
Yeah, so speaking to the motion, I think I'm going to be voting against that. And so whenever I do, I just want to make sure I'm clear as to why. I just think that's effectively too much money. My preference, and I know we're debating this motion, so I won't lead too far into the next one, but my preference is where the discussion was earlier with the one rink and then the design for the Zamboni garage, given the importance of that. So that's why I can't get there with this. But I'll see where this vote goes and see if another motion pops up. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Councilor Van Newkirk, then I'll have a comment, then I'll ask Councilor Miller for her summation, and it is your motion, okay? I'll get to you in a moment. Councilor Newkirk, Steve?
Yeah, thank you. I had my clarifying comments, so I'll state where I'm at on this one. And
please do.
I'm not in favor of the motion as presented. I too just see it as too much. And I know costs aren't going down, and I know that there's an expectation of doing it right and servicing and having a warm place to put skates on. I get it and I see it all. It's just too much for me to spend $372,500 on a new building and then stack 2 porta potties outside. It's just a photograph. It's just a picture I can't get out of my mind. A brand new building and 2 yellow porta potties anchored to the side of it. So, and I know that doesn't get cheaper, right? It's just today, for me, I'm not there in supporting this and look forward to what solution might come in another motion.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll have a quick comment, then I'll turn it over to Councilor Miller for her summation. I'm also not in favor of the motion strictly because I mentioned in my earlier comments in the previous motion, the rink shacks were never part of our initial concept with the 2 outdoor rinks. Council did a very good job of building 2 very high quality outdoor rinks. Going to last us a long time. As Councilor Tessier mentioned, some municipalities have warm-up shacks, some don't. We'll have, I believe, a revitalized shack at Bellevue, and I'm comfortable with the other 2 rinks not having shacks at this point going to the future. So having said that, seeing other comments, Councilor Miller, you have the floor for your summation, and then we'll go to a vote, please.
Alrighty, I think that it's reading the room. I can get a feel of how this may go. I'm still going to put this forward. I guess I just have to say that, you know, I went for 3. If I get 1, I think that's pretty good. And I hope that this is not the beginning of the end for these conversations regarding these, because growing up myself, you know, outside of having these as an option to utilize, they were great. So I really think this is an improvement to the quality of life in our winter city. But I will be sufficient, you know, if this vote doesn't pass. And then ending it, yeah, like I said, I hope that, like, I know right now it's a lot of money and costs aren't going down, but we have to also remember that we will be having this conversation and revisiting this cost that may only go up in the next budget or the next budget. So just to keep that in mind, you know, it's only going to get more expensive. And just one clarifying question. Bellevue will have a washroom?
Through the mayor to Councilor Miller, this cost does not include a washroom. This is a basic
Yeah.
change room structure. Bellevue with a washroom would be
Yeah,
615,000.
so yeah, so essentially we are, okay, I guess we'll discuss that in the next motion that comes forward. So I would like to, yeah, that's it. Let's vote.
Okay, as long as you're good. Appreciate that. It is your motion. Give me a chance to do a summation. See no further questions from council. Council, I will ask you to vote for the motion before you. Councilor Tess, oh, thank you, Councilor Tessier. Appreciate that. That motion is defeated 6-1. Councilor Miller in the affirmative, 6 councilors in the negative on that one. All right, with that one, I'm anticipating another motion. I can make it myself, but I will open the floor to other members of council if they want to do something on this, or I can proceed with the motion of my own based on the discussion. Might lose 6-1. It's just a trend tonight. Okay, this is going to be, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I think I can tell the direction that this motion is going to go. I wouldn't mind a 5-minute break so that I could confer and have an appropriate motion drafted. And I'm sure council would appreciate a little break too.
Actually, you read my mind because we are past our 7:30 normal break time, give or take a bit. So we will have a 10-minute break to allow us to have refreshments and get some fresh air, and we'll come back with a draft motion that I or another member of council will put forward. And gentlemen, thank you for your time. We're not done yet, but it's been good. So with that, we are recessed for 10 minutes. We'll convene back at 8 o'clock even. Thank you. Appreciate that. We are back live after our break to have a discussion further on under our topic being 6.2, capital project updates, permanent rink shacks and Zamboni storage garage. I think we have a motion prepared. Councilman Cook, would you be prepared to make the motion when it appears on the screen? Oh, sorry, Kat. Your microphone is now on.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the 2023 permanent rink shack project be reduced in scope by limiting the project to the design and construction of the Bellevue rink shack, and that the scope of the 2023 Zamboni storage garage capital project be changed to the design of the rink shack and Zamboni garage at J. LaPointe, as well as the design of the rink shack at Dassero, and that the name of the project be changed to the rink shack and Zamboni garage design.
That again.
I'm going to, actually, I would like to remove the design of the shack at Dance Row.
Okay.
Unless, unless the
Okay.
thought is, and if, I'd like to hear the thought of council, but if we're looking at maybe, designing something smaller, but I think for right now, personally, I would like to see the Bellevue rink shack move forward because that's something that we already had. And I think, the residents would like to see that, still go up. And I think that with that Zamboni storage garage, it's something we will need. And the J. Lapointe rink will be used, as far as I know, quite a bit by Baja. And so they'll also be able to benefit by having that all there. So I think these two projects are important to move forward if we want to have some shacks at our rinks and at the cost and not do all of them.
Okay, so, okay, thank you. So the first part of the motion talks about one rink shack, which would be at the existing Bellevue school site. I've got a couple of questions on that part of it. And the second part of the motion, that's not going to be done in the near future. That's for down the road, correct?
Yeah, this is just to move forward with the design and the scope of the project because that still needs to be done.
I was thinking of splitting the two motions, honestly. Councilor McCook, would you be okay with that? You did make the motion. Would you be prepared to make the two separate motions?
Sure.
We can discuss them separately. Would you be okay with that?
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we will work and we'll now discuss the first motion as Councilor McCook has already outlined on the first part of the screen there. So with that, I'll open up to questions from members of council to administration or discussion on the motion itself. I see Councilor Miller, you wish to speak. So Ashley, you have the floor on the first motion.
Thank you. Thanks, Kat, for bringing this forward. I do have a little bit of an issue with this first motion because we are, you know, putting the Bellevue rink back, but we're not getting apples to apples. It's not including the two washrooms that were currently already there. So to me, this is, we are not gaining anything. I will not vote in favor of this. I really think we need to revisit, if we're going down this path, I think we need to revisit this whole project. That's just my thoughts. Because we're just putting something there for the sake of saying we put it there. But really, it's not the same. It's not going to provide the same experience that it once did. And that's that.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that. Those comments. Councilor Van Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor.
Hey, we're trying different permutations and combinations to move something forward. So there's that part of it. And thanks to everyone for being patient with us as we work through this. Just a clarifying question for administration. Has there been any activity to date at Bellevue that contributes to the construction of the rink shack? Has there been any, besides some dirt movement, is there any foundation? Is there any services up to? Is there anything that has been done already that would contribute to the construction of the Bellevue rink?
Through the mayor to Councilor Van Newkirk, no, there has not been any work done towards a permanent structure there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just wondered about that. Yep.
Oh, sorry. There has been no construction or efforts put into any, like no foundation or anything has been started for any kind of rink structure at Bellevue.
Yeah, so we're starting fresh.
That's true. The only consideration is because of the construction work that I mentioned earlier that will be happening there this summer, there is an advantage if we are going to do something there. If we don't put a rink shack there now, it will be landscaped. And then if we want to do it later, we'll have to tear that up. So there is an advantage. We save that effort of doing the landscaping if we do the shack at the same time as this construction. That's the advantage.
Okay, and I guess to that point, then we wouldn't go and plant 6 trees where a rink shack might go in the future. You know, that would stay with grass and dirt.
True, we would still have to put down grass and
For sure.
and topsoil and
Yep.
and so forth that we wouldn't otherwise. put
Yeah,
into-
and
put
that
into
was the
structure.
second part is how, in what state would it be left after? That's why I kind of move forward. So that's the clarifying questions I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Barnhart, followed by Counselor Monkoff Swain. Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor. This may be an obvious question, but I don't know the obvious answer. If we're changing the scope anyway for Bellevue, or it seems like we might be changing the scope for Bellevue, could we add the bathrooms? And what would that do to this project? Is that even an option?
Through the mayor to Counselor Barnhart. So I missed the first part of your question. Could you repeat?
My question was that we're changing the scope of if this passes, we'd be changing the scope of the project at Bellevue. Could we add the bathrooms into that if we're changing the scope anyway? And is that a possibility?
Through the mayor, Counselor Barnhart, yes, we can do that. We have a pricing for that. Because we did consider that as part of the concept. Now, our concept, to Counselor Miller's point of 2 washrooms in the previous structure, the pricing we did for the revised structure only had a single washroom into a change room. But we do have costs for that.
So we don't know what the cost would be.
Yes, we do.
You do know what the cost would
Yes.
be.
It would be 615,000 for the Bellevue rink with the washroom,
Washrooms or not? Oh,
with the washroom.
now I'm really confused. One
washroom.
Okay, 1, not 2.
That is correct.
Okay, so in the past there were 2, now there would be 1.
Correct.
And that's in this scope currently? No.
No, it's
It's
not.
not. Okay.
That would be a separate motion that
Sorry,
I,
there's so much detail here and I know we're in the weeds, but we're trying real hard to get what we know the citizens want. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. You're done. Thank you. Appreciate that. Counselor Monkoff Swain, followed by Counselor Tessier. Oh, Ms. Bougere, would you wish to speak first before I go on to Counselor Monkoff Swain?
Sure, just a procedural note. If council wishes, someone could put an amendment to add the washroom to the scope. It would mean adding additional funds, but we could amend the motion if someone wanted to go that way. Or if Councillor McCook herself wanted to substitute the motion, we could substitute the motion to include the bathrooms with the increased funding for that additional scope.
Thank you. I was going to mention that, but I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Counselor Monkoff Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think when we get into these debates, I try to think how I justify and explain my decision. You know, I voted for the permanent rink checks, $740,000 for those locations back at their budget time. I thought that was justified. But if I fast forward and look at it now, I agree that it's not worth replacing the shack without the washrooms. I'm with you. And 615,000, that gets us a whole new rink, right, for the cost of the rink itself. And so, you know, if someone asked me what happened to the rink shacks, I would say I wasn't prepared to spend $615,000 on a building with 1 washroom. So I'm gonna vote against this motion, and I think to unfortunately to Councillor Miller's point, let's look at all of this stuff in a as part of the overall budget package, but I can't support a $615,000 building for one rink. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that. Counselor Tessier, Renee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the discussion. I want the building. I want us to have shacks. At $600,000 for just a shack for that. I'm close to Councillor Monkoff Swain's thinking it's like, how do you say like that's okay? Like I want it, right? But I don't know. I'm 50-50 on this one again. I got to hear what others think a little bit more, but it's a lot of money, but the problem is Bellevue did have it, right? So I'm in the thought process that I would like to see at least one in our community. Hearing the first number at budget and yeah, getting 3 for that price, that was reasonable. And that was a hard push, but now we're getting 1. I just look at other options, what we could do with, around $430,000 without the washroom. That's a lot of money for just a shack to tie skates to get out on the rink, right? That's the objective there, is to come in when it's warm, when it's super cold out, and take a break. And the amount of time you're spending at the rink, maybe an average hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know if it's justified at this moment, even though I want to have one. That's where I'm at right now. So I really gave you no answer, so.
Thank you for that, I think. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk. Kat, you have the floor.
You can go first.
Oh, I'm sorry, my screen said a different. Okay, Councillor Van Newkirk first, and then Councillor McCook. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And once again, good comments. There's a lot of back and forth going on here. I was foreshadowing earlier when I was talking about a brand new building with 2 porta potties anchored to the side, realizing that Bellevue had 2 bathrooms in it, and for $615, we're still only going to get 1. So I want to get there, but at that cost, I can't support. If someone wants to put a motion forward to build another rink, let's have a talk about that, because that's as Councillor Monkoff-Swain alluded to, that's what else can you do with $615? And the answer is lots. And there's lots of other options, and we're going to continually be faced with what is the best thing to spend money on. We're going to be continually perplexed by how much things can cost. We're in quite a cost, not a very cost conscious environment right now on the supply side, coming out of the pandemic, and just everything costs more, everything takes longer. I can't even buy the screws that I need for my deck right now. So I can only imagine the challenges that it takes to build projects and build things right now. So anyways, that was a long-winded no, Mayor, but I just wanted to add some perspective to where I'm at. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tessier. Oh, no, sorry. Councillor McCook, you had your line on. You still want to go? Please, your mic's on.
I just want to add, I think part of the big issue with the extreme costs with some of these things is due to vandalism, is because we need to build them so they don't get destroyed, which is very unfortunate, but that's the reality that we're in. And that's why they are so expensive. Part of my reason for moving this forward was, my understanding is that I thought that the will of council was to still have something at Bellevue. And perhaps if we started with 1, we could see how often it was used. I don't disagree that the cost is astronomical. However, if the thought is that we just need to go back to the drawing board and perhaps we're not building shacks at all, we're building, a bench with a lean-to, I think then that was kind of what Councillor Van Newkirk's original motion was about. So if that's kind of what we're going back to, I don't know why everyone voted against it, but that's that's kind of where my thought is at. I thought we wanted to move forward with something, so that is why I pushed this forward. But I completely understand the costs. I don't disagree that they are very high. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I go to Councillor Tessier for round 2, I'll kind of keep things moving along here. I'm of the opinion I want to support the motion. I feel it's very important for us to replace the shack that was taken down with the rink restructuring that we did with the Bellevue. I thought there's no bathrooms there. I have to admit that was my mistake. I am a little uncomfortable with the price, but I do think we should build the shack that was there, build it right, and it's going to last us hopefully as vandal proof as possible. But that's part of the cost. But I'm in favor of rebuilding the Bellevue rink shack. But the other rinks, that's another day, another budget down the road. But I will be supporting this motion for the sake of having the Bellevue shack replaced as it was there previously. Having said that, I will go to round two and we'll move things along before I count back to Councillor McCook for a final comment. Councillor Tessier, you wish to, oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just thinking about it a bit more, I'm not in favor of this one at the moment. I'd be in favor, looking forward to the next motion, and the reason being, at this cost, I personally don't see us doing shacks at every rink. It's going to be impossible. We might end up with one or two in the whole city.
Yeah.
And knowing we need a Zamboni storage, I see that JE rink location being a more need above Bellevue in the long run, because we have to have a Zamboni spot for all the outdoor rinks. So why invest $600,000 into the Bellevue one when we're going to have to do that JE one? So for that reason, I wouldn't be in support of the Bellevue one at this moment. Thank you.
Sir, could I ask a clarifying question before I go to Councillor Barnhart? So will there be a Zamboni shed at Bellevue as part of the Bellevue shack?
To the mayor, no, there is not a
There's not.
Zamboni storage garage in the design for Bellevue currently.
That's correct.
Also, I wanted to clarify that with J. LaPointe, because it is quite a complex project, there is a risk that it may not be completed for skating season, and it may impact the operation of the rink at this point. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Thank you for clarifying that. There's no Zamboni shack at Bellevue. Yeah, so I thought that was my understanding. I thought you said, just tweak me there, sorry. Councillor Barnhart, Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. At some point, somebody said, you know, the number again, 615,000. I thought, holy mackerel, that's worth more than people's houses. And we keep calling it a shack, and that's bothering me because, you know, that's a pretty nice house for 615,000. And I don't know what this is about. I honestly, you know, I can only trust you telling us, and you've done, and I appreciate that that's what you've done. But it seems to me that we're being gouged somehow by others because we're a municipality. And I just think it's unreasonable. We could probably get volunteers. They wouldn't do it to code. They do it to the way we've done it in the past. And, you know, maybe that's what's suitable. But I could live with the 615 for 3. I can't live with it for 1. So no, as much as I'd like to say yes to Bellevue, I can't. That'd be a hard number to defend, a really hard number for a lot of reasons when people are living in houses that are worth less.
I appreciate that. So the motion as it stands right now, if I may, Councillor McCook, that does not include a bathroom at this point, correct?
That is correct.
So it won't be 615,000 then.
This motion covers designing and constructing a rink shack at Bellevue in its basic form with a change room and heat, no washroom, for the existing budget that was approved.
Just to clarify.
And the second, we're not talking about the second one, that's fine. Sorry.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Miller. Councillor, before I go for a final summation from your motion, Councillor Miller.
Sorry, just a clarifying question. So this first motion, total cost is 475,000?
To the mayor, to Councillor Miller, yes, that is correct.
Which is still significant amount in comparison to some people's homes.
Yeah, a lot of cash.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCook, would you wish to have a final summation before I call for the vote, please? Kat, you have the floor if you wish to.
Yeah, I put this forward because, as I said, Steve's motion was defeated. Therefore, I thought that everyone wanted to move forward with a rink. I completely agree that the costs are astronomical, and especially when we're talking about the cost of someone's home. So I totally understand where everyone's at and completely understand where the vote will go. And I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Having no further discussion on the motion, Council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you at this point. Six against, 1 in favor, being myself. So the 6 no and 1 vote yes, being myself as mayor. Thank you. 6-1, 6-1. Sound like a tennis game. Okay, thank you. The next motion, perhaps Councilor Cook, I'll ask you to Sorry, we just did this one small motion, right? That's okay. I thought I was clear. I probably wasn't. I know we were voting as far as the motion went. No problem. Councilor Cook, would you please read your second motion one more time? Please get it on the table for us. Thank you.
That the scope of the 2023 Zamboni Storage Garage capital project be changed to the design of the Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage at the J.E. LaPointe, and that the name of the project be changed to Rink Shack and Zamboni Garage Design.
Thank you, Councilor. Would you care to speak to your motion, please?
Sure. Once again, we've gone around the table about this, and I think this is something we're eventually going to need, especially if we want to have the Zamboni outside and cleaning the rinks. And that is one of the main rinks that will, I think, consistently be used. So I think this is a project that should still move forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Questions, discussion on the motion? Councilman Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor.
Happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. It was neat and clean. Appreciate that. Councilor Tessier.
I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Councilor Barnhart?
Is there a rough idea how much this will cost? Is one of these numbers, because is it the 140?
Through the mayor to Councilor Barnhart, at this point, we know that it will be significantly less than the approved budget for that project. And any additional funds would be transferred back to whatever reserve it came from.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on the motion? This is a quick one compared to the previous ones, so I'm not going to jinx by asking any more questions. You had your chance. We're done. On that note, Council, would you please vote on the motion before you? And that passes 7-0 in favor. 7-0 in favor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, gentlemen. Great debate, great report. We couldn't know what we did without the report you gave us, information you gave us, all you being here to answer questions. So thank you for your work and your time this evening. With that, Council, we will move on to our next topic. Councilor Monkoff-Swain.
And I just want to make sure that administration is clear on what we didn't direct them to do today. So we voted no on a whole bunch of motions. So is administration clear? Do we need anything further to clarify that basically that money gets returned back into the capital pool, or do you have enough there?
CEO Schwartz.
What we'll do, we were just talking about that, to clarify what I think just happened is we just killed the project, the 3 Rink Shacks. We've continued to do design on our garage for the Zamboni. The money, the capital that was going to go for the 3 Rink Shacks, what we'll do when we bring the capital back is direct it back to the reserve. So,
yeah, perfect. I just want to make sure that you guys were clear on what we just did there.
Okay, we are good. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Appreciate that. We are on to our next agenda item, which is 6.3, information on recreational vehicle parking revisions in the traffic safety bylaw and bylaw 1032-23. A possible bylaw amendment to the traffic safety bylaw. Ms. Boujay, I believe you'll be presenting to this. Are you going to present from there, which you're more than welcome to do?
I think that seat is cursed, so I'll just get right where I am. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and good evening to any members of the public who are joining us this evening. I'm Sandy Boujay. I'm the Director of Legal and Legislative Services, and it's my pleasure to bring this report to you. This report addresses a few topics related to the traffic safety bylaw. The topics are more flexible options for recreational vehicle parking, changes to the dangerous goods routes provisions, and a request to delay the effective date. So there are a number of moving pieces. I'm going to walk through a little bit of the report and then open it up to questions, and I'll try to keep my remarks very brief. So last year, the city undertook a significant review and rewrite of the traffic safety bylaw. The new bylaw combined several existing traffic bylaws and modernized the city's approach to certain traffic matters such as playground zones and dangerous goods routes. The new bylaw was given 3 readings in January of 2023, but the effective date for the bylaw is not until June 1st of this year. and it was also pending ministerial approval of the dangerous goods sections. One area of more significant change in the bylaw was the provisions related to parking recreational vehicles. At the April 25th council meeting, council directed administration to provide further options that would allow some more flexibility for RV parking, specifically in tighter spaces such as cul-de-sacs. The bylaw as it's currently drafted requires that an RV park in a legal space that is completely adjoined to the owner's property. If that is not possible, an owner may also park on a legal space adjoining another person's property with that property owner's permission. So that's what we have in the new bylaw that comes into effect in June. The bylaw also includes time limits for how long an RV may be parked in a space before needing to be moved for at least 48 hours. So you can park for 72 hours and then you have to move it to an off-highway location for 48 hours. The rationale for this approach was providing more certainty on the requirements and limitations for parking, aligning Beaumont's provisions with those of other urban municipalities in the region, and enabling municipal enforcement with more certainty and ability to address resident complaints related to RV parking. Further, these provisions were tested through public engagement. The questions and responses to the online survey are detailed in the report, so I won't reiterate all of those, but basically there was strong support among respondents for the RV provisions as drafted. Administration certainly acknowledges that addressing RV parking is challenging since opinions are often divided. However, based on the city's legal review, comparison with other jurisdictions, and public engagement feedback, administration does believe that the current provisions as drafted are the best available option. That said, the report does provide an alternative to the current provisions in case council would like to direct further changes. The chart in this report sets out the two options. So the option one is leave the provisions as drafted, and option two is the more flexibility approach. The chart also provides considerations for each approach to help council weigh out these options. Council's original intention was to have this bylaw in place for June 1st, 2023 to be ready for the summer season. Accordingly, administration developed plans for public education on this bylaw to help with the transition to new rules. So that's not just for the RV parking, but also for the switch in the playground zones and school zones, because that's a big change as well. Administration cannot move forward with these plans until we have some certainty on what needs to be communicated. While moving forward with a June 1st effective date is possible, administration is asking council to consider delaying the effective date to September 1st, 2023. That delay I know is disappointing, but the reason is that it allows us to have a sort of fulsome approach to the communications plans, the installation of the signs for playgrounds, school ground zones, as well as address the dangerous goods problem, which I'm going to turn to now. So addressing dangerous goods. The city has received some direction from the province to make some housekeeping amendments to the dangerous goods routes section of this bylaw. Normally, these changes would have been made very easily and quickly, but since the provincial election has been called, the ministry will be delayed in issuing approvals that the city needs in order to move forward with the bylaw. If council would like to have the bylaw's effective date remain June 1st, then the most expedient option is to simply amend the bylaw by removing out the dangerous goods provisions. The city's older dangerous goods routes bylaw would remain in effect until such time as this matter can be addressed after the election. And like I said, it would be a fairly quick thing to address after the election. Attachment 2 of the report has a proposed bylaw that would amend the traffic safety bylaw by taking out the dangerous good provisions. And that's what council would need to pass if they want to move forward with the June 1st. But if council supports delaying the bylaw until September 1st, then the only amendment needed is the change of effective date. And that's the attachment 1 bylaw. So we have a couple of choose your own adventure bylaws here. So to summarize where we are, administration needs direction on two questions essentially. Does council want to change the approach to the RV parking, or is council comfortable with the provisions as drafted? And does council want to keep the effective date as June 1st, or do we want to allow the delay to September 1st? The answers to those questions will determine which amending bylaw we use and how we proceed from here. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back over to you and open up the floor to questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bujaya. Madam Clerk, appreciate that. And we're going to proceed as follows. We have option 1 and 2 in front of us. I have Councilor Markgraf Swain willing to speak first. And then we're going to debate option 1 or 2, whichever motion comes before us before then. And then we're going to see how that goes. And then we'll talk about the June 1 effective date, and then worry about the dangerous goods stuff after the fact there. So with that, I will open the floor to Councilor Markgraf Swain. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to support option 1, and I'm sure there's a motion that's ready to do that. That addresses both moving forward with the June date and removing the bylaw that's already in there. Removing the changes to dangerous goods provisions that's in there. So, I mean, this is pretty straightforward for me. This council discussed it, debated it. We got a lot of feedback from residents. We had some direct feedback opposed to it, but I can also, speak to a lot of direct residents who support it. Personally, particularly given some of the provisions in there regarding the impact around school zones, et cetera, and delaying it to September is not acceptable to me. We need to get this out there for the safety of our residents. And over the winter months, if there is a need to amend the bylaw based on feedback, then we do that. So yeah, I'll be moving option 1 that goes with status quo, and also makes an amendment to remove the dangerous goods route provisions. So I can verbally speak to that, or if there is a motion that's.
I think Ms. Bujaya's got one going there. No problem.
You got 17 different permutations of what this could have been.
And while you're doing that, Ms. Bujaya spent a number of hours on this report. It's very thorough, as it always is, very detailed, and helps us make good decisions. So thank you for that.
Yep. Do you want to, sorry, do you mind just having her say that into the mic? Your mic's
Oh, I'm
not
sorry.
on.
Oh, mic was on.
And there are people listening on ours.
Thanks.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, this amending bylaw would simply amend the traffic safety bylaw to remove the dangerous goods provisions, but does not alter the effective date or the current RV parking restrictions.
Please make your motion. Speak to it, Sam.
Yeah, I'll move that bylaw 1032-23, a bylaw to amend the traffic safety bylaw to remove the dangerous goods routes provisions, be given first reading. I don't need to speak to it. I've spoken to it multiple times. I think it's clear we just need a bylaw in place to make sure we have it safe this summer, and we can look to address it later on if there need to be specific changes.
Thank you. So to be clear then, this bylaw, this motion speaks to option 1, which is status quo, no change to the bylaw, and it also gives bylaw effective date of June 1st of 2023, which is to our advantages outlined before. I'll be supporting this motion. Councilor Tessier, you wish to speak on the motion, please. You have the floor, Renee.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a question for administration or Councillor Markgraf Swain. So if I come home in my trailer and I ask to park it at my neighbor's place because I live in a cul-de-sac, and that individual says no, all right, but I have nowhere else to park it for the night, or I go to the next house and now I start knocking on people's doors so I can park my trailer there. Then they call municipal or municipal enforcement, and now I get a ticket, and vice versa. If I said, hey, what if I don't get permission and then bylaw comes by and be like, well, too bad, you have to actually go to council to change this. I don't know if that's the best option, that we should be knocking on people's doors to ask them to park their RV on a public highway. So I don't know, what's your thought process on it?
Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Melvin wants to speak to this specifically on the ME, but my thought option is we put this out to engagement. The majority of residents supported it. And let's see what happens throughout the summer. And if there are changes that we need to make, then we make them. What I'm not prepared to do is go back and change the bylaw, delay it till September, and then have our old bylaw going through here. I think there will be very few cases of this. And the positives far outweigh the potential negatives there. So let's get the bylaw in, let's get the engagement, the communication out there, and then we can just work through any of those processes.
Thank you,
Okay.
Counselor.
Thank you. One further question for administration, maybe. So let's just play out a scenario here. So I park my RV and I don't go ask the neighbors because they're not home. Okay, they come home, they call ME, they come over. Yeah, I attempted to knock on there. They're saying no. These are the scenarios that we're being asked are happening or will be happening. We're saying that ME can give warnings or whatever, but they're saying come to council. So what's I'm just kind of looking for direction on what's going to happen in that scenario then. And sorry, I don't remember the cost of the ticket either.
Who wants to ask that question? Just 1 second, Renee.
So all we're saying in this option is we're telling residents, go knock on your neighbor's door, ask if you can park on a public roadway with your RV. Do I understand that correctly? That's what it's saying. Am I wrong or am I right? So I'm looking to administration for that answer. Oh, sorry.
Madam Clerk.
So I can't speak to municipal enforcement in great detail, but just to clarify, the provisions in our bylaw are identical to a number of other jurisdictions like Edmonton, St. Albert. Actually, in St. Albert, you can't park at all. In some municipalities, you can't park in residential districts, period.
Period.
So really what this, like a lot of municipal bylaws, it's complaint driven. So if your RV is parked and it's parked in front of the neighbor's house and they do complain and it's an issue for them, it does enable municipal enforcement the option to either speak to the person, try to resolve the situation, issue a warning, issue a ticket, recommend dispute resolution service. We also have that option. So it is a tool. It is not the only tool. I just want to clarify that it's not something that's net new for our municipality. This is a fairly common way of dealing with recreational vehicles when they are permitted in the city. I don't know if that gives you any comfort, but I hope it helps. And the ticket cost is $200.
Okay. Yeah, no, perfect. I appreciate that explanation. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I'll be consistent with my concerns for this as well. They go down the same path that Councillor Tessier was speaking about. I remain having concerns with residents asking permission from their neighbors in order to park. And I stand strong with that concern because the rest of the traffic standards bylaw does a great job of saying where you can and can't park. There are proximities to hydrants, driveways, crosswalks, and corners. And whether you're a single vehicle or you're hooked onto a trailer, the traffic standards bylaw tells you where you can legally park. So in my opinion, that shouldn't require the input of of neighbors at all, because the bylaw already says where you can park legally. And just a piece that was brought forward is that Fort Saskatchewan did remove the wording around parking adjoining to your property. They had parking adjoining your own property, not going to get permission. And one of the statements they said, parking is first come, first serve. And that was one of the pieces that was brought forward by Fort Saskatchewan, and they removed it May 10th, 2022. So I won't support the motion, just being consistent with where I was last time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Randy-Cook. Appreciate that. Councilor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Just a clarification, Ms. Majaya. Thank you, Mayor. If I'm reading option 2 correctly, it means that a scenario could be that my neighbor who has an RV can park in front of my house anytime.
Madam Clerk.
Option 2, not option 1. Option 1, they would have to ask my permission.
So the only difference with option 2 is that provided that they're in a legal parking space,
Right.
they do not need to obtain permission to park. And just to clarify, this amending bylaw takes out the dangerous goods provisions. It would be possible for someone to put forward a motion to add to the amending bylaw to change the provisions for the RV. So we don't have to defeat this bylaw to deal with the RV. So if a member of council wants to proceed with option 2, we can add that to the amending bylaw. So we can draft that in a motion, but that might be a step ahead of where we are, so.
Thank you,
Not-
Madam Clerk.
Not sure I understand. So option 2 right now says that in the explanation that an owner could park anywhere in the city, which I mean, to me, that means they can park in front of my house as an example.
Yes.
And I have no say in that matter.
As long as they're in a legal spot.
Right. No, that's irrelevant to me. This is about kind of who can park in front of my house or not. And so, again, by going with option 2, that doesn't solve the problems we're having, especially in a cul-de-sac. You know, if going with option 2 allows the people to park anywhere, that's not really getting to trying to resolve some of the issues between neighbors.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you might go off. My apologies.
Sorry,
Two
option
mics.
2 just has the time limitations, but it allows people, so if you live in a cul-de-sac and you can find a space on the street where you can park, you're not required to obtain permission from the property owner. So that's the more flexible approach. It will not address the complaints we get from residents who say, I don't want this RV parked in front of my house. You
And
are
it seems
correct
to me
about
like
that.
one option favors the RV owners and the other option favors citizens who don't have RVs. It's how it's probably an option 3 here, which there usually is. But anyway, I thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller, you have the floor, followed by Councillor McCook. Ashley?
Just a question for clarification. How do you patrol, or how do you, I can't find the word. How do you clarify if somebody, enforce if somebody has got permission from their neighbor to park their trailer there? Like, how are you gonna disagree with them saying, Bob told me I could, but he's just out of town?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller. This is not an easy piece to enforce. At the end of the day, we're trying to go education first. We understand that RV owners come back on a Sunday, we give them time to unload, and then they either park legally in accordance with the current bylaw, or 2, they move their camper to a storage lot outside of the city limits. So at the end of the day, yes, we are complaint driven for sure, but we're also doing proactive issues in the community when it comes to all of our bylaws, construction, our officers are constantly out there having a look and making sure people are following the bylaws. So if we notice something, obviously, we're going to be the education piece first to say, hey, you know what? New bylaws in effect, these are the rules. They may not be aware. We'll always give the residents the information and then try to give them options to do it. Cul-de-sacs are one of many challenging areas that we have in the city. Zero lot lines. We already face parking constraints within that outside of RV season. So it's just based on the way our cities develop. It doesn't allow provisions. You either have to go either way. You either let people park where they're legally allowed to park within the city, and then you have to accept those, or two, you tighten up the rules a bit and say you can park in front of your house or in front of your neighbors with consent. Those really are two things with RVs. It's challenging for sure to try to enforce that. At the end of the day, my staff are not going to be out there with a ticket book on the first complaint or on the first issue. They're out there giving tickets to everybody. At the end of the day, this is an education piece. We're trying to figure out how much complaints are going to be out there for sure. And I would agree, there's people who are going to be for this and people are going to be against it. And we're not going to appease all of the public when it comes to this. So we heard from council and from residents last year that we need to have some more stiffer rules when it comes to RV parking within the city. We looked at other municipalities, and these were the recommendations that we came forward with. But at the end of the day, if council wishes to change those, then we will work within the bylaw that's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you both, Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Muckoff-Swain, and then I'll be calling the question. Councillor McCook, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in favor. I will vote in favor of this. I think to Chief Melvin's point, this is a difficult one. I think we'll make some people happy and frustrate others, but I think at the end of the day, we did hear from residents that changes needed to be made. And I think it would be prudent of us to let the bylaw go through and see how it goes through the summer and determine whether there are additional complaints or what comes of it. So I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGough-Swain. Sam?
Just closing comments and well said, Councillor McCook. I won't repeat any of that. When I think about this, and I'll speak to Councillor Barnard because I'll say you're the swing here. When I think through this, I would like what problem we're trying to solve, right? And the problem we're trying to solve with this one is people were parking their RVs in front of other people's houses, and there was no recourse there. And I sympathize with folks in a cul-de-sac, and I hope there is a nice solution there. But for the greater, when I look at the bigger picture, what the greater impact for residents is that the bylaw that we have in place now provides a bit more clarity there, that no one can just go and park an RV in front of my place for that period of time. So let's give it a year to go through. Let's see where the challenges come from and see if we would need to make any changes. But most importantly, I think we owe it to our residents who asked us overwhelmingly, 700 plus people, to input this bylaw. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I concur with your comments and Councillor McCook's as well, that simply the bylaw is designed to work with people who weren't following the rules before and irking other neighbors. So this bylaw speaks well to that, and we need to give the bylaw a chance to do its job. Overwhelming public support for the bylaw as presented. So with that, I'm going to call the question on the motion before you, Council. Please vote based on the motion in front of you. The ayes have it, 5 yes, 2 no. Councillor Tessier and Councilman Newkirk in the no category. Thank you, Council. Moving on with our balance of our report here. Madam Clerk, can you walk me through the procedure now? We have got first reading, correct? We go move to second reading now, is that correct? Thank you. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading of the bylaw? Councillor McGough-Swain.
I'll move that bylaw 103-23 be given second reading.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on the motion for second reading. Seeing no discussion, Council, would you please vote on second reading of the bylaw? Gentlemen, thank you. Steve? I think your button didn't go through on you. That counts, passes Council 6-1, Councillor Tessier in opposition. We're now going to, I believe, consensus. Madam Clerk, for third reading, when you're ready, no rush. I know you're doing some things there.
I'll move that bylaw 103-23 be considered for third reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion?
Just for clarity,
Yes.
this has to be consensus in order to get the third reading tonight. So I'm looking at my learned colleague, Mr. Tessier over here for this one.
All right, having said that, oh, Madam Clerk, you wish to make a comment?
Yes, if we don't have a unanimous vote, what happens is the bylaw would then just be added to the next available council agenda for consideration, for third reading.
And that would
That would just.
prohibit our
require-
ability to be able to communicate on June 1st if we don't pass it tonight.
Correct.
Thank
So say that one more time so nice and clear. So if we don't get third reading tonight, our communications problems will be compounded for June 1. Okay. All right. With that, I will ask for you to vote on consensus to move to third reading. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Council. Good decision. Appreciate that. Having said that, we'll move on to third reading. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading? Councilman Swain, you want to make it a clean sweep?
Yeah, I think for 444, I'll move that bylaw. Well, I should know this by now. 1032-23 be given third reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, would you please vote on third reading? That carries unanimously 7-0. Thank you, Council. We are moving on our agenda now to, I believe 7-1 and 7-2 are both on consent agenda. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
6-4.
Yeah, sorry, I missed 6-4. Sorry, Steve. My apologies. I have my hand on top of my budget, my agenda here. Next on our agenda is 6.4, motion following notice. Councilman Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Tonight I'm looking for council support for the following motion. Just gonna double check it here.
Yeah, take your time, Steve.
Yep, looking for council support on the following motion that before the commencement of 2024 budget deliberations, administration provide a report outlining options, timing, costs, and any other considerations related to installing a pathway and bridge to connect with pathway directly west of 63rd Street, west across LeBlanc Canal to the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Please speak to your motion.
Yes, so this particular piece of path has seen foot traffic across it for as long as residents who live beside it and behind it can remember. Residents continually are fabricating bridges and throwing a shopping cart in to stand on, then building a nice bridge again, then taking trees and debris to make a crossing, and each time the city clears the structure, something else pops up. So it's very clearly a desire line in our community. So I'm seeking council support tonight to get some options on costs and timing and any other considerations that may pop up as administration reviews this to see what kind of a solution we can put forward that gets a crossing in that location, which leads directly from that neighborhood over to the Sports and Rec Center, which is a great connection to have anyways. So thank you in advance for your support, council. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Councilman Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke about being careful on how much this is going to cost. That's probably a bit too soon for that. So I support the motion for the sheer fact that this is providing us information, but and I'll speak to this later on today, that I personally don't like us having to do one-off notice of motion to talk about the things that we want in the capital budget. I know you're there. So I will be asking administration later today to establish a process so that we can do this. I know we did it last year where we had some one-off motions and it got a bit confusing. So my point is I support this for you to get some information back as the budget deliberations, but I'm hoping for a broader process that we can get all these sorts of things to be considered prior to budget. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on the motion or questions for Councilman Newkirk on the motion? Councilman Newkirk, you wish a final comment? Please proceed, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. And just as the options come together, note the wording does say a bridge. So although an option could be a large culvert with dirt, and that could be an option put forward that would make sense. And that's why, we include, or I decided to include the word options in there. The intent is to have a physical bridge that goes there, but administration can explore the options and see what would be best given the timing of flood patterns and all those good things that need to be considered. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Council, with that, for the questions or comments, I'll ask for the vote on the motion before you. That motion carries 7-0 in favor. Thank you. Appreciate that, Councilman Newkirk. Now, 7172, we're on consent agenda. We now have to SAYO update. Mr. Schwartz, sorry, did I miss some? Sorry? Oh, geez, I'm one of those days today. Yes, councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. Are there any councillor inquiries this evening before we move to the CEO's report? Councillor McGuff-Swain, Sam?
Yeah, thank you. My inquiry request response, and let me know if I need to put it into a motion. But as per my previous discussion, try this for my 6th year. Hoping to create a space where council prior to going away for the summer break can sit down and have a discussion around capital priorities that we would like to see administration do some pre-work on prior to budget. 2024 discussion coming up in the fall. I don't think I need to rehash it, but I think some of the challenges that we've had is at budget time was we don't know how much things cost and we throw a dart at it. And we've seen an example of that tonight. So one of the best meetings I've ever had in my 6 years here was when we all got in a room and talked about some of the capital projects that our residents have brought forward to us, or things that we think should be considered, that allowed administration to prepare that, bring that to budget, and then we voted on it at the time. So just curious from administration if you need a motion on this, but I'd like to set something up in June for us to be able to have this type of conversation. So I'll leave it there.
Madam Clerk?
I think we could treat it as a councillor inquiry if we limit it to providing information on the current plans for capital budget planning with council prior to the summer break. And then depending on the response, you could then proceed with making a motion or doing a notice of motion. I don't want to speak for our friends in finance, but perhaps phrasing it as what are the current plans to engage council on capital budget plans prior to the summer break, get the response, and then treat it as a part 2. Would that be acceptable?
I mean, could do that, or you could cut to the chase and just direct administration to pull together a meeting.
I think you passed a similar motion within a year, so the motion wouldn't be allowed. So I'd also have to check the date. So I would need a couple of minutes, and I would also need it in writing, and I need a minute to draft it.
Yeah, you've worked way too hard today for me to make you do that. So I'll phrase it in the way that you've requested to seek an update from administration, and then we'll have a discussion in 2 weeks based on depending on what that inquiry says. So, but I think it's clear what I've asked for. I think administration is picking up what I'm putting down. So I see the CEO wants to speak, so I'll leave my
Yeah.
point there.
CEO Schwartz, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just to go off of what Ms. Pacheco was saying is part of the capital process for next year, as it was last year, and signals just got crossed and it didn't happen, was to have that free for all, if that's what you would like, because it gives us some heads up, like we saw tonight in crunching numbers on a very short basis, or a short time frame. Doesn't help anybody. So we get what you're putting down.
Yep.
We'll present the process that will include a June meeting,
Thank you.
or before the break meeting. Sorry.
Sure.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, administration, for the replies. Are there any further Counselor inquiries this evening? Seeing none, thank you. Move on to CEO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
Wow, 3-hour meeting and I've got a 15-page update. That was bad timing. I'm kidding. People, wake up. Come on. Okay, got about a page and a half. Quick things here. Recreation. There'll be an adult recreation survey that's going out beginning May 15th, and it'll run until June 12th. So there'll be a link on the digital screens at the BSRC, on our social media and our web pages as well. And the idea of the survey is to understand where our gaps are in adult programming. So we urge people to complete that survey. From May 22nd to the 29th, inclusive, there's going to be limited parking at the BSRC because we've got all kinds of things going on, like Beaumont Days and the Midway for Beaumont Days and the provincial election. The advanced polls are May 23rd, Tuesday, May 23rd, and Saturday, May 27th. Midway is set up in Beaumont Days, and Midway tear down Tuesday, May 23rd to Monday, May 29th. And you can see the dates up there as well. So we're urging people to consider walking to the BSRC through those dates, or bringing your bike and leaving your vehicle at home. Infrastructure, we're going to start our annual hydrant checks soon, which includes flushing. So if you'll see technicians out there flushing water onto the streets. This is normal and an important part of maintenance to our hydrants. Transit is now operating on a reduced schedule with the routing moved to Mill Woods from Heritage Valley. So we will continue to monitor that and look at the feedback that we receive. It's Economic Development Week in the city of Beaumont. It's a North American wide celebration and recognition of economic development professionals and the essential work that they do every day. We know economic development is very critical, especially to our city, and it's foundational work that helps to create jobs, support businesses, improve the quality of life in communities, large and small. And that's a good point. Economic development is just not all about just economics. It's about that quality of life in your community. So it involves a whole bunch of different things. Protective Services, Beaumont Fire Service transitions to the AFRAX system on May 2nd, 2023. And I know Mr. Melvin can explain it better, but it's a provincial-wide radio system that allows the Beaumont Fire Service to be better connected in more areas in our city and our region. It's something the RCMP uses as well. To a reminder that a fire ban is in fact for the city of Beaumont. And the last one here, I think it's the last one. No, I got two more actually, but this one comes with a picture so we can show it. On April 28th, the Intergenerational Legacy Project celebration was hosted by FCSS. And we can see our mayor speaking to the crowd. The event provides an opportunity for Beaumont residents to come together to celebrate the intergenerational relationships that were established over the past year. A sense of connection and belonging is important to contributing to a healthy and inclusive community. Many of the participants provided feedback that these relationships will continue beyond the legacy projects. So that's pretty cool. And I like the pictures, especially the kids. And the last one I wanted to throw out, is it's not on the sheet, is tomorrow is McHappy Day. So we have members of the Protective Services that are going to be slinging burgers like Mr. Melvin. They're going to be working the drive-through. We've even got Carly's going to be on cashier, and the other Carly's going to be on fries. That's got train wreck written all over it. A portion of all the proceeds go to the Ronald McDonald House. So if you're driving by McDee's tomorrow, pop in and have some fun with these folks. Thank you. That's all I have.
There we are. Thanks, Mr. Schwartz. Any questions for Mike on his report? Seeing none, we'll notice of the motion this evening. Members of council having notice of motions to put forward this evening. Sam? You have the floor, Sam.
Thank you. At the May 23rd, 2023 council meeting, I will move that additional funding in the amount of $100,000 to be funded from capital grants for the 2023 library community gathering space project be approved.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that. Any further notice of motion? I have one myself. I'll go last, but any further ones from anybody else? Ms. Bujaya, please, would you mind putting mine up there? Oh, there it is. Thank you. I move at the May 23rd, 2023 council meeting, I will move that by the end of the fourth quarter, 2023, administration prepare a report on options for partnering with Habitat for Humanity to create additional affordable housing in Beaumont. And that report include information on any opportunities for engaging community partners, such as developers, home builders, other nonprofit entities, as well as information on the typical process and expected timelines for such housing projects. Thank you. Are there any further notice of the motion this evening? Seeing none, I'll have a quick comment before we wrap up this evening. I'll be on McHappy Day as well tomorrow in the morning, I think from 10:15 till noonish or 1 o'clock, somewhere there. I'm not sure where I'm going to be exactly, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. So it should be fun. And if you want to support a good cause, come get a bite to eat at McDonald's tomorrow and meet some of our administrative people making your food, which could be interesting. I did see Chief Melvin and Mike Berezowski cooking burgers last week at the staff function at the CCBCC. They did a great job. Burgers were very well, not well done. They were very well properly cooked, not burnt. They were awesome. Awesome. So having seen that, no further information. We are adjourned at 9:13. Thank you. Enjoy.